Hello everybody, welcome to another video. I'm in the backyard today. I have a garage full of furniture, but unfortunately along with this beautiful spring weather comes pollen. Brace yourself. I don't do pollen, so I'm trying to keep myself out of the dust and stuff for a couple of days. What I thought I would do was take you guys down memory lane a little bit and show you some of my previous flips. I'm new to YouTube, but I'm not new to furniture. So what I have done is gone through my entire list of pieces and I've pulled out 20 of what I consider to be my favorite or best, most dramatic flips that I've done in the last 4 years, 5 years, something like that. I can't keep track. There's a bug on my hand. I don't know what he is. Fly away. Yeah, so that happened. So I'm just trying to keep myself out of the dust and dirt, but I wanted to give you guys something today. This is a lovely little pond, so peaceful and relaxing, but unfortunately I can't sit out here all day. So without further ado, let's look at some furniture. My name is Angie, and I'm the one behind Transcend Furniture Gallery, a business created from the love of vintage furniture and the desire to take broken, dated, and unloved things and turn them into modern treasures. Sometimes I paint, and sometimes I don't, but I always do what I can to save old pieces from the trash. Welcome to my workroom. Okay, here we go. Number 1. Before I get into it, I just want to say a few words. Some of these photos are a little bit older, so the quality might not be quite as good as some of the stuff I'm putting out today, but still worth sharing with you guys. Also, as with any flip, there's going to be some of you that don't necessarily agree with what I've done here. Maybe you don't like the paint color, or you don't like the fact that it's painted at all. Redoing furniture is so subjective, and my main goal is just to give these pieces new life. Most of them were destined for the trash, and if I can take something like that and turn it into something beautiful that people will love and cherish for years to come, then I feel like I've done my job. So this is a gorgeous vintage vanity slash dresser slash desk. You could pretty much do with it whatever you want to do with it. I opted to go with a nice off-white paint with some antique wax, which gives it a bit of an aged feel, and keeping wood grain on the drawers. I ended up having to replace the hardware because there were a few missing and I couldn't find replacements for it. But overall, I'm so happy with how this turned out. It's absolutely beautiful. This picture was staged and taken in my old shop, and I just used a stock image to replace the reflection in the mirror, which is a pretty handy thing to do when you deal with these pieces. Number 2, and these are in no particular order by the way. This is the top of a hutch. You have to use your imagination here a little bit because it's tipped up on its side. I ended up refinishing the base separately and needed to find a use for the top. So I removed the glass and replaced it with hardware cloth, which is the strangest name really because it's not cloth at all, it's metal. I revamped the knobs a little bit, gave it a nice paint job with some light distressing clear wax to seal. I also added some woven style wallpaper to the backboard, cut the bottom flush, and added solid wood bun feet. And this is still to this day one of my favorite staged pieces. I absolutely love how this looks. What was a discarded hutch top has now become a freestanding, super sweet country style cabinet. Number 3, this was also a marketplace find. This is a Danish style teak dresser. I'm assuming it would have had legs at one point, but it didn't come to me with any legs. And I happen to have some extra photos here of the process, which is kind of nice. You can see here I added solid wood legs. The finish was very thin, so I ended up just sanding it. I didn't bother stripping it first. And look at this wood grain. It is absolutely stunning. There's no stain on this at all except the legs, which I stained to try to get a close tone to the rest of the piece. And the worn out, dinged up little dresser with stickers on it is now a beautiful piece once again. Number 4. This mid-century style dresser was pretty beat up. It had some fairly significant finish issues on the front and the top, but I am a sucker for walnut wood grain all day long. I actually prefer it to teak, believe it or not. Some people are all about teak. I love walnut, and I especially love walnut paired with black paint. I love pieces like this, and there are a lot of people that really shy away from painting mid-century. Just do some research on a piece before you even think about painting it. Pretty much the only ones I paint are pieces that I know are mass-produced and fairly common. I'm not painting priceless works of Scandinavian art. In this case, paint definitely added value. Number 5. These adorable little mid-century tables were in someone's cottage for, I'm assuming, quite some time based on their condition. I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to save them, but they actually turned out absolutely perfect. I love the inlaid pieces here, and while I'm not typically a fan of the two-tiered side tables from that era, I think these are absolutely beautiful, and the lady who bought them was over the moon, so that makes me happy. Number 6. I've done quite a few of these old radio cabinets. They're always a bit challenging, especially where the knobs would have been. Because when you take the radio chassis out, those little knobs come with it, unfortunately. So what I tend to do is just add furniture knobs in their place. Clearly, it's not a real knob, but I don't know. I think this still looks phenomenal. And why wouldn't you just leave the radio in, you ask? Well, it depends. Sometimes they don't work, often they have their wires cut, and sometimes a piece would just be better repurposed. I ended up replacing the cloth that covered the speaker section, and overall this piece is completely refreshed and just beautiful. Another incredible piece saved from the trash. Number 7. You're probably starting to notice there's a theme here. I do a lot of mid-century style furniture. This piece was structurally sound, but obviously had some finish issues, and I didn't like that you couldn't really see the different inlaid pieces on the door front. Refinished, you can see here they're very different and they stand out, and to me, this is how it should have been in the first place. And I just had to keep these original pulls. They're so cool with the turquoise center. Absolutely love how this turned out. Gorgeous piece of furniture. Number 8, mid-century again, what a surprise. This piece was pretty rough. You can see here that the finish is shot, and I honestly don't know what is up with those knobs, but they had to go. I replaced them with these beautiful round brass pulls, so much better. I ended up leaving some of this piece wood, including the solid wood drawer handles and the 3 middle drawers. They had to be wood, and I wanted to keep it natural, and the rest got painted a beautiful charcoal gray. I love when flips are so dramatic that I just have to send the after picture to the person I bought it from. She was floored, so excited for the new owners, and that makes me happy. Number 9. This piece wasn't structurally terrible, but the finish needed some work, and I didn't like the dated feel of it. The pulls had to go, and the scallop trim piece you see at the bottom there, I ended up cutting that flat across the middle, which gave it a bit more of a modern look. I didn't care for the legs that were on it, so I ended up putting different legs on. These handles were actually salvaged from another vintage piece of furniture, but I spray painted them in a copper color, which looks so cool with the black. I didn't want this to look like just a black box, so I did something kind of neat on the side with some painter's tape just to give it a little extra detail. And here's the finished piece. You can see again that trim piece on the bottom is now flat across the middle instead of scalloped, and that always gives pieces a more modern vibe when you can do that. Number 10, we're halfway through, and I'd like to introduce to you probably the ugliest nightstand I've ever seen. I don't know what this piece did to deserve being painted brown like this, but I was absolutely floored to see the gorgeous burled wood underneath that paint. I opted to leave the wood grain on the top as well as the drawer faces, and the rest was painted in a light sage green. And I added a couple of brand new cup pulls, which actually give this piece a little bit of a farmhouse vibe. Man, what a difference. If you're liking this video, please feel free to comment below, give me a thumbs up, subscribe if you like stuff like this, and maybe I'll do a few more. 11. This piece was about to be tossed. It's missing the 2 drawers on the left as well as the top. This is a technically 2-piece, but it's meant to be displayed as a 1-piece hutch. No idea what happened to the top. What I ended up doing was adding pine planks where the drawers were to add shelves. I gave this piece a nice warm white paint job, and overall it has a bit of a farmhouse vibe. This top you can actually buy at most hardware stores. It's called a laminated pine top, but that doesn't mean laminate. It's actually wood. They just have glued it together into one solid piece, and you can actually buy it that way. So I cut it to size, stained it, and sealed it, and it looks like it was always meant to be this way. Number 12. It might sound strange for me to say I don't normally buy painted pieces because I actually paint pieces on occasion, but this piece I had a feeling about it. I can't explain it, but boy was I happy to strip that paint off and find this. I really lucked out here in that the wood grain was still in pretty much perfect condition. Obviously I had to completely strip it, sand it down to bare wood, stain it. But when I say perfect condition, I mean there weren't any big gouges or dings or any major damage that I had to fix, which is pretty common when you find painted pieces. Usually that's why they end up painted in the first place. But here she is, restored to her former glory and ready for the next several decades of life. Lucky 13! It actually is my lucky number. I was born on the 13th and I've always loved number 13. Anyway, that aside, this mid-century Canadian-made teak desk was in desperate need of some refinishing. And by some, I mean completely refinished. True story, I actually picked up this piece from a mid-century mansion in a town near me that was being torn down, and there were several pieces of furniture there. Not all of them could be saved. This one I felt had potential and I grabbed it. The best part about picking this up was that my partner and I were able to have a walk through the mansion. Oh my gosh, the architecture was insane. I felt so bad that the house had been left to rot and eventually be torn down because, man, you just can't beat that era. At least this desk got saved. Number 14. I so wish I still had the original footage from this because I actually filmed it. There's a video on it on my Instagram page under IGTV if you want to have a look. I don't know what happened to this piece, but I'm so glad that I found it. The entire thing, inside and out, had to be redone. Look at this nap joinery. This piece is old and I'm over the moon with how this turned out. I didn't want it to look brand new. It is not. It's well over 100 years old, so I did some things to make it look aged, like antiquing wax and some light distressing. I gave these brand new cup holes a bit of a spray paint treatment just to make them look a little bit different. And here is the finished product. Again, I could not be happier. It's hard to believe that this is the same piece. If you don't believe me, go to my Instagram and look under the IGTV section and there's proof, it's there. Number 15. This cedar chest had some pretty significant water damage on the top. It didn't smell very good inside. But I got lucky. This piece is actually solid cedar. You don't see that all that often. Normally it's veneer on the outside and cedar veneer on the inside. This piece is actually made of solid planks of cedar. This meant I could really go to town with sanding, get those stains out, and look at this piece. It is absolutely stunning. Is anyone keeping a running tally of how many times I've said stunning in this video? Just wondering. And I'll just let you enjoy this beauty for a moment. I picked up this antique table from a thrift store. It had some pretty major veneer issues on the top. There were big chunks missing. Unfortunately, I didn't have sheets of veneer large enough to patch these, so I ended up having to fill it and paint the top. I painted this off-white, gave it some light distressing, some antique wax to make it look a little bit older, but I did preserve that beautiful inlaid wood grain on the front panel there. This piece is kind of cool because the top actually opens up, giving you a little bit of hidden storage space. And here's the full shot of the piece completely finished. These tables are usually fairly dainty, so they're best suited for occasional use, but they're so pretty I just can't imagine throwing something like this away. Number 17. I don't do chairs very often or upholstery at all, but there was something about these. These were absolutely filthy, and the finish on the solid wood frames was completely shot and water damaged. Even so, I just couldn't imagine throwing these out, so I gave them a very good deep cleaning with an upholstery cleaning machine, and they came out beautifully. This is the original fabric, and I'm glad I was able to save it. The wood frames were restored, and I love these chairs. If I had the space for these, I totally would have kept them. I love the wood frame and the color. Number 18. This piece was a bit of a surprise for me. I picked it up assuming that it was going to be some form of laminate or pressboard, and while part of it was, the drawer fronts were actually solid wood, so I was able to do this super cool two-tone effect, and this piece is barely recognizable from its former self. I added solid pine planks to the top and gave them a bit of a white wax treatment, and this piece is now light and bright and airy and is ready for its next life. We've got 2 pieces left to go in this list. Thank you for watching this today. I know it's not nearly as exciting as one of my how I do videos, but I really just want to drive home the point that just because something is broken or dated doesn't mean it needs to be tossed. Number 19, and she's a doozy. I'm not sure really what I was thinking when I picked this up, but okay, really I was thinking I have to save this piece. There were so many layers of paint, so many. You can see here I've actually started stripping the top of it. The top isn't real wood, but the rest of the piece was, and I was quite happy about that. I added some beautiful new matte black hardware, added a pine plank top which I left natural, and the legs that you see here are actually original to the piece, but I've also stripped those back down to natural wood, and this is now the coolest little coffee bar in someone's house. That's what they ended up doing with it. It's so hard to believe that this is the same piece I started with. Number 20. Last but not least is another mid-century painted dresser. I picked this one because 2 people had the same vision to paint this black, but we did it in completely different ways. There were a ton of drips and runs on their paint job, so I ended up sanding it completely smooth, repainting part of it black, replacing the hardware, and I left the 4 bottom drawers natural wood. I just stained them, and this piece looks like $1 million now. Obviously, I didn't get $1 million for it. Could you imagine? But I was so happy with how this turned out. Thank you so much for watching this video. Oh, and if you thought I was just gonna leave it there without one of my dramatic music endings, I have a surprise for you. This is probably one of my favorite flips so far this year. It was actually this piece and a tall piece as well, but I have to show you this wood grain.